the political view changes the way cops work, the way they try to protect themselves, because they don't protect themselves anymore. They just hold on for dear life till someone comes and helps them. There's nothing wrong with defending yourself.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Oh, you're done.
You're done. So,
well, that's what I was going to say. Back in your day, they didn't really recognize mental health issues.
No, you couldn't.
You couldn't.
And that was a taboo.
You would have never get on JTTF if you said that you were,
if you
feeling
were
a certain way.
Back in the day, it was, and I hate to use that term back in the day, but it's true.
It is.
The explanation was it's the job, deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's what we were all told. Shut your mouth. So you're having a bad dream. Sorry. And just deal with it. Because God forbid, back in the early 90s, you mentioned you had any problem.
Yep.
And psych services, which was the mental health part of the NYPD, which was what it was. If you mentioned them at all, your career was done.
Yep.
Your gun was taken, your shield was taken, you were put on a desk out in motor transport in the middle of Queens doing midnights.
well, your era that you're talking about specifically right now, for those people who want to get a window into it, it's the one thing the movie Lethal Weapon got right. Do you remember the original one? The psychiatrist is always trying to, and he's got some serious psychological issues that he is dealing with, but he's not going to talk to her.
No, because you're done.
You're done.
You're finished. And that was a big, big problem in the NYPD. So what happens when that happens? There's more alcoholism.
Yep.
There's more drug addiction. There's more other corruption problems that are going on because of the stress of home or whatever's going on in your life other than what's going on in the street. That was bad enough. But you didn't say a word, back then, and you just dealt with it. And then later on in life, you wondered why, for X amount of years, you had terrifying nightmares,
And you couldn't tell anybody about it.
No, absolutely
you could
not.
Maybe tell your wife. You can't tell anybody, or maybe your partner.
Right.
That was about it. Yeah. Maybe.
You just, again, you were under that umbrella and thing of deal with it.
And I always said, it's a badge on my chest. It's not an S. I'm not Superman. We talk about it all the time on the show. Yep. We call it filling the glass. Keep filling that glass with water. Sooner or later, that's going to spill over.
Absolutely.
And
most cops have it spill over at one time or another.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Without
in
doubt.
one way or another.
And the only way to get water out of that glass is to talk about it.
Yes.
and to talk to someone.
Right. And that's why, like I said, today there's so many outlets, and we've met so many great people with the show. Amanda.
I was just going to say that.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
The work that's out there now with these outlets and support groups and organizations is so good for these cops on the street today.
And in Jersey here, we have Cop to Cop.
Well, Cop to Cop is what really did it for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know where else to turn. Like I saw it in the back of a magazine, and that's, I'm like, all right, let me give it a shot, because otherwise I'm going to blow my brains out.
The great Dr. Stefanelli.
And great Dr. Stefanelli. There's,
saved my life.
So I've come across, and Amanda knows him quite well, a guy named Billy Mazer. Billy was a deputy chief of Atlantic City Police Department, who is now the first responder liaison for Acadia Mental Health, who is and I talked to Billy a lot. I actually went to high school with him. So he loved what he did, but what he does now, it's so much more important to him. And that's not trying to take away from what he used to do. It's just his new purpose. Right. But you somehow, and I know we're sort of just grazing over your 30-year career, because in my opinion,
we only have an hour.
Yeah, but in my opinion, you were a cop, and you were a great cop, and you loved it, and everything about your police life seems right on. Like the way you dealt with stress. You didn't drink, you didn't smoke, you tried to stay in shape, you spoke with your wife, you didn't divorce your wife. So right there, you're in the top 10%. But for some reason, or like we talked about it on Instagram Live, there's a beginning and an end to everything. So your career is winding down. And it's not that you didn't love it, but what made you hang it up?
Like I said, I never dreamed about being there for 30 years. And then where I was in JTTF and what was going on with a certain agency, got to be too much. And being in JTTF for 17 years, which was way over what most of us or most guys ever did in that unit. I think there were 3 of us with that amount of time, 3 or 4 of us with that amount of time in that unit. And it got to a point where enough of the fights, enough of the arguments, enough of just the disagreements of how to do a case and what a case should be done, how it should be done. And it was just, enough was enough. And it was time, and 30 was a nice round number. And that was it. But it was...
you put those papers in, and it's permanent.
It's permanent.
It's tough.
Yep. Yeah. And then I'm still young. I'm only 55, but I retired 3 years ago. So I'm
Still the oldest one in the room.
Of course. I design it that way every week. Do you understand that?
That's what you told me about.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes,
I got it.
that's
Okay.
right. We've only had one person in here older than him, and he served in World War II. That was it.
And we went to high school together.
Yeah.
How about like political red tape? Did that have anything to do with it too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
very much.
exactly.
Speaking of him, his name's Bob Gibson. By the time this show airs, he will have turned 100. Him and I have the same birthday. He will have turned 100. I want to say happy birthday, Bob. He served D-Day, Battle of the Bulge. Calls me all the time.
Stole a Mercedes, stole a BMW.
He's got girlfriends on every corner. I mean, he's really a national treasure.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Those are treasures.
So,
but the political part of it played a big role in it.
That's a
too.
big thing. That's the most disheartening thing to a cop.
Yep.
You're trying to do the right thing, but you got to fight that political red
Absolutely.
tape, and it's disgusting.
So 2020, you're not very popular. But the funny thing is you've seen attitudes towards police change so much over your career, where you were able to shake the tree. Now, I go into Times Square or something, people are walking down the street with joints, and the cops are just standing there, and they're walking right past them. And God, what a different world! 30 years has changed so much in police work, and I think it'll rubber band back. Don't get me wrong. I think
so too.
I think it's necessity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it'll ever get back to right after 9/11, though. Do you remember the love for cops right after 9/11?
yeah.
I mean, people were just stopping and thanking you for being a cop and everything else, and now they're spitting on cops and everything. It's disgusting.
Yep, I think I agree with you, Kev. It's going to change because it usually does. And I think this.
Well, you look at the Dinkins days. You were not cops were not popular.
Nope.
And then you had the Giuliani days. Cops were popular again after 9/11, all time, and then it just started sliding.
Right, exactly. And Mike, you just mentioned the political ball game, and that's what it is. The worst thing, and I've said it for a long time, if there's one occupation in our country that politics should have nothing to do with, it's law enforcement.
Exactly.
Because once that happens, the safety of the officers change.
Yep.
The political view changes the way cops work, the way they try to protect themselves, because they don't protect themselves anymore. They just hold on for dear life till someone comes and helps them. There's nothing wrong with defending yourself. We were told in the academy back in 1990, you're forbidden to lose a fight. You're not allowed to lose. And you do everything you can to win a fight. And if you bring that today, there's nothing wrong with that. Cops are allowed to defend themselves. And you watch these videos that are out there, and that's when I get so mad.
Yeah.
And I go crazy watching these videos of cops not defending themselves.
Well, I used to love that. You go to arrest somebody, you're nothing without that. Take off that badge and gun, and you're. No, I don't do that. I'm sorry.
No. Right.
I don't fight fair.
No,
I have a radio to call other guys that are going to.
I have a
fight
garbage.
you also.
I have a garbage can right near me.
Yeah.
Cops don't fight fair.
No.
Like I said, we're in the only business where you can't lose.
Right.
You lose, someone's dying.
You're not allowed.
You're not allowed to lose.
Yeah, you're dying.
So after you end your career, you after 30 years wanting to do this your whole life, you have to be lost.
It was it's weird, and the way I described it, it's like walking forwards for 30 years and then someone telling you got to walk backwards. You could do it, but it's going to take a while until you get the rhythm of walking backwards. And that's what it was like. It was a lot of, what am I going to do? And thankfully I have the greatest family in the world. And, I can say that my 3 kids and Andrew are the best in the world. Had my back. We'll be good. What do you want to do?
I speak with a lot of cops who are retiring, and they go through the same changes, and they say, like, well, what am I going to do? My answer is always the same to them. Anything you want.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
You want to start a podcast, go start a podcast. You want to work at Home Depot, go work at Home Depot. You want to be a Walmart greeter, go ahead. You can do anything you want, and you have security if you did it right. And then like, see, you're along the same lines as us. Like, I ask Mike all the time, why the hell did we start a podcast? Like, we have no idea. You started Gold Shield Show. Like, why?
Right?
Why? But you find something in it. I'm sure that's why it happened.
Oh, that's exactly why it happened. Danny and I were very good friends. You know, he was my sergeant. We had met in 90, I think it was 99. He was my sergeant in the gang unit in the Bronx. I was already there. Danny got assigned there after he was a detective, got promoted, spent some time in the 4-6, and then went to the gang unit. And actually, our first day was hysterical. The way we met and what happened. And I just told my daughter this story last night because she actually asked, how did I meet Danny? And my partner and I were key on this one gang member. He was the head of the Nietas. His name was Santana. He was our like pain in the ass. We wanted him.
Thorn in the side of the
we couldn't get him. We couldn't get people to talk about him. It was, but he was our guy. And one day it broke, and we got someone to give him up. They gave up his apartment with guns and drugs and scales and name it was in this apartment. So we get a search warrant. And I walk into work one day, and Danny's standing in the office. And I kind of look at him like, all right, who's this guy?
Who's the new guy?
Hey, Danny Murphy, how are you? I'm like, great, let's go. He goes, what are we doing? We're doing a search warrant. Let's go. Okay. We've known each other 35 seconds, and he's in our car driving to a warrant, has no idea what we're doing, what it's about. We're trying to brief him on the way there. ESU ends up hitting the apartment, getting all the stuff out of there, but Santana's not there. So now we have this press conference down in 1PP with all the stuff we found, Santana's picture, his cousin's picture, and the inspector going, all right, now you got to go get him. So that was Danny's introduction to me. And we ended up getting him like 2 days later. We got him to turn himself in. But
he didn't flee the country?
No, he was running around Jersey, near Hackensack.
Yeah, all this shit comes to New Jersey.
And then we ended up getting in touch with him and talked to him on the phone. He ended up turning himself in. And then Danny and I always were friends. He was my sergeant again in JTTF, and we just were always friends.
Yeah, but at some point he had to approach you and say, "Hey, let's start a show."
No, actually, I did, but don't tell Danny. We were talking one day, and it was on the phone this past December, and I just said, "Hey," and the original idea was just to have him do it. And call it Murphy's Law, something like that.
Perfect.
And he goes, no, we'll both do it. And I thought, all right, what are we going to do? Are we going to be just the two guys talking about what we did? We don't want to do that. So we actually did a lot of research. We listened to a lot of shows. All right, we don't want to do that. Let's do this. And we came up with the idea of there's so much bad stuff going on in law enforcement today in the view of police officers. Let's highlight great work that no one knows about.
Yeah.
And one of
the news certainly doesn't do that.
Right, exactly. And one of our big catchphrases is a backstage pass to these big high profile cases. Everyone sees a bad guy get put into a car and taken down to court. But no one knows that cop didn't sleep for 3 days, he's seen his family in a week, chased this guy in 3 different states. No one knows that. So what we did is instead of just the kind of common true crime, category, what we did was get the men and women who actually did these cases themselves, get the firsthand account of what happened, and highlight our guests and let them just tell the story of that case. And we thought about, we're like, all right, that'll work. And it just kept rolling, and one after another, and better. And then, it kind of splintered a little bit that we got so drawn into the mental health part of the job, and how important that is. Because, our first couple of guests, we kept kind of hearing the same thing. I went through this, I went through that. So we kind of have a 2-prong approach to the show. The high-profile true crime, firsthand backstage pass, and the mental health issue. And that's when Irish Angel, the Wounded Blue, all these guys we started really talking to and getting what they're doing out there, the Suffering Podcast, and what they're doing.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
And
But it's working.
oh, it's great, and we couldn't be happier.
So much fun, isn't it?
Oh my God, we have a blast.
But you know what it is, though? It's hearing those stories. You take on those stories, right? And you take on their pain.
Yeah.
We were saying the ride home. We leave here. I mean, Kevin and I hear a lot of dark stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's that ride home where you just,
Yeah. Yep.
you got to decompress.
Sometimes we'll call each other on the way home.
On the way home.
What the fuck did we just listen to? Like what? Because it's so just horrible. It did that with Amanda. Like, geez, what the hell?
Yep.
If you listen to Amanda's episode, like I said, we had to break it up into two parts because every time we went through like her suffering, because what we do is, as you know, we bring them down and then we bring them back up. So just when she went through her suffering, we thought we were going to bring her back up and just bring up another story.
It just keeps coming
It
down.
just kept going down and down.
It's like, all right, I'm tired of hitting my head on these ledges down there. It just kept going down.
And then the thing about her is she'll tell you all those down stories with a smile on her face.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's who she is.
Just be the victim or the victor.
Yep.
That's her big thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
And she's definitely the victor. I'll tell you that.
Oh, she's awesome.
Yeah,
she's
so
great.
What's so where can we find Gold Shield Show? Throw out some plugs for us.
Gold Shields we have it on every podcast platform, every audio you can think of, thankfully. It's all out there. And then we just started our YouTube channel, Gold Shields channel on YouTube.
Good luck dealing with YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And we've heard that. We're just going to take it. We're going to tell the truth. We're going to get these stories out there. And what they do, they do. We're not going to, stop the stories that are out there because we're getting some amazing stories. And like you just said, Mike, Danny and I become fans. We hear these stories, like we'll know about the story, we'll know about the case. But then once you start hearing things that you've never heard of, and you sit there and there's times that Danny and I, oh crap, we got to talk.
Yeah.
Because you're getting so into the show. And I'll realize it more when I listen to the show back.
Yeah.
Well, that was the difference when we went from audio to video. I could listen to these stories, and if I get drawn in like that, I just sit there with a blank look on my face. Oh, yeah, I got to talk.
Right.
And I can go cut that out.
Right.
But I can't do that anymore with video, so I have to keep going.
Yep.
But like you said, you become a fan of these people after a while.
You do.
Like Josh Radell.
Yeah, Josh is great.
Got shot in the head.
Yeah.
And he's still here today to talk about it.
Yep.
And talks about his half-shaved ball when he was going to the hospital. That was his big concern, getting shot in the head, that when he took off, he was going to see, because he manscaped that day and didn't do the rest.
No, he manscaped, and his
You
wife
told me that story.
his wife
crazy.
saw him, and she's like, well, what are you doing that for? So he stopped. He gets shot that night on the way to the hospital. He just got shot in the head. He's thinking about, oh my God, they're gonna
gonna
strip
see
me
him.
naked and see my half shaved balls.
Right. Well, we had a guest, Kimber Guest, who is a sergeant down in Berkeley County Sheriff's Office in South Carolina, who got shot 8 times.
Oh, I saw that one. Yes, I know. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Unbelievable. And that show, you would think would be heartbreaking, and she cracked us up talking about that, between throwing up her cheesy fries, after getting shot, and being pissed off that she got shot. If anyone can encapsulate strength, it was Kimber.
Well, what about like Billy Bart?
Yeah,
Billy Bart was a fireman, FDNY, came down with cancer, and he goes,
from 9/11.
He goes, I'm lucky I got cancer.
Yeah.
He goes, because I got such great treatment and everything. And me and Kevin are sitting there, you're lucky you got cancer.
He wishes,
bright outlook.
He wishes everybody had his cancer experience.
Yeah,
that's
what it
exactly
was.
what he said.
Yeah.
But, Tom,
Crazy.
listen, we're coming to the end of this show, and I always end the show with the same way, because you've done 30 years. You've seen an enormous amount of stuff throughout your career, and you've seen an enormous amount of suffering, not only the stuff that you endured, but others endured. What do you think it's taught you?
Compassion. You hear these stories and you think back in your career, and the show did a lot of this, and Danny and I'll talk offline, and I mean, we talk 2 or 3 times a day. You forget what you gone through in 30 years. You always hear, you forget more than you remember, but then you hear these stories of what people have gone through.
You're like, I'm not so bad.
Right. And the heartfelt, that we feel when we're doing the show, but compassion and understanding and the strength and faith, and believing in where you came from and where you're going to go is a big part of it. And that's definitely has come back even more once we started doing the show.
And you can relate to it.
Oh,
you can relate to the
absolutely.
guests.
Because any of us, we've said it on the show, any of us, between Kimber, Tanya Owen losing her husband, any of us could have went through that in a millisecond.
Yep.
And thankfully, we didn't, on our end. The shooting I was in, Ralph got shot. He was okay, thank God. So you just relate and you put yourself in those spots, and I think that's what we've realized.
Well, you have a new outlet in order to heal, because that's what your retirement's supposed to be. It's supposed to be healing from all the wounds that you incurred during your career, and that's what I know the show does for us. It heals a lot of stuff. Sometimes there's a little some damage in here, but I wish you nothing but success, and I can't wait to see you keep growing and growing and growing. And don't forget about the humble guys here at the Suffering Podcast.
Oh, no.
When you guys are getting like 1 million downloads a week,
Yeah.
From your mouth to God's ears.
Remember the little guys on the way up, because you're going to meet the same guys on the way down.
You know what? It's a great ride, and we just, we understand who we are. We're two NYPD detectives having fun, but I love the people we've met. You guys, not just saying it because I'm here. I'm not. I truly mean it. Me and you. The first time we talk, it was like we knew each other for 20 years, and other people that we've gotten to meet, and we say it to them all, one thing in the NYPD, once we get kind of our claws in you, you don't get rid of us.
Yeah.
Well, we tell everybody, once you come on here, you're family.
You're it.
You're family. I mean, we have such a huge family now.
I speak to, I'm going to say 90% of the guests. 90%. And the other ones that I don't speak to, it's not because I hate them. It's just because, we don't, I even get, I get weird messages. Let's put it that way. I get real weird messages.
But we say it all the time. My list, my contact list, and holidays, texts, to people who are on the show. It's a different level, and that's what our job is, though. I think that's just in us to be that way.
Probably.
You know what it is, too? The connections we have now.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for this show, we wouldn't have connections. If someone has a problem, they could call us.
Right.
And we may not be able to help them, but we could refer them to someone that could help them. Like we brought up Amanda Coleman 1 million times tonight.
So do you understand?
She could help anybody.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how many people that through Amanda that we've been able to get into treatment? And it's the most wonderful feeling in the world. And it's all it is trading one life of service for another life of service.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Tom, thank you so much for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure meeting you, brother.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah,
this was great.
We could have went on all night.
All night, but thank you very much.
I'm sure after the show's over, we're going to stand around for another hour and bullshit and tell stories.
Which is all good. We do the same thing. Thank you again, though.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Gold Shields with Tom Smith. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Dark days make the sun shine brighter. Mike's episode 9 cup. Everybody just wants to do their job. Strength at home makes your job better. A new beginning can only happen when something ends, but most importantly, compassion. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Clapper, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
Fans only.
That's yours. You show your feet. Follow Mike at Mike_Failace. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And, of course, follow The Suffering Podcast. Like and subscribe. Please comment. We do read all the comments, and we will see you on the next episode.